Well, since I teach a communicative subject, I want my students to use their language and their words impeccably. It's the one way we have to show the world who we are most predominantly is by what we say, and then following what we say with what we do. And so it's maybe a little pet peeve of mine when people say something and they don't mean it. And so I really think words and ideas do change the world. And so I want my students to know that they are meaningful, and the way that your meaning can be trusted is if you use your words impeccably when you have the chance to use them. And so I don't like the idea of wasted words, and I want my students to realize that their words are meaningful and powerful when they mean what they say. And if I can pontificate a little on it, I find that, most of our words spoken as a group of people, if I were to say how much is meaningful, and in this I'm considering the media and TV and all of the useless types of communication going on, that I think the world would be a better place if we had more avenues where people really wrote things and said things impeccably instead of just to entertain someone else and then drift off into the land of meaningless, So it's hard to decipher that now, what's real and what's not, but I want my students to use their words and their language meaningfully. Well, and students will sometimes say, not just students, people. Students are just a microcosm of people at large. And so people will say, well, I said that, but that's not who I am, or this or that. And my feeling is, if you say it, it is indicative of who you are. And that's why you're careful of what you say, and you just want it to be good. Although sometimes we all say things we don't mean, and I get that, but you want that to be the exception. I think.
High school seems really important right now, and the social aspect of high school seems really important right now, but in the big picture of life, it's not a big deal. It's 4 years of potentially 100, and everyone takes high school so seriously, and there's always so much drama, but it's like, it's 4 years of your life. Like, let it go. Don't worry about it. And I mean, really try to think about your future in high school. I mean, high school doesn't define who you are at all, but if you can start thinking, okay, this is what I'm good at, your natural talents. If you could start discovering that at a young age and then use that to then find a job and then to go to school, that's what I recommend.
I guess that if you were to sum it up in one idea, it would be try to find your way so that you separate yourself from the prevailing culture of the day. Our culture is so wrapped up in consumption. We buy things because of advertising, which makes us think we need them. And most of the things that we buy, we don't need, and it's causing huge amounts of problems. I mean, the problem of using resources, the problem of waste, of disposing of the waste when we tire of something. And another thing that prevailing culture does is makes us think that the way to solve problems is through violence. And that's really true in the United States. That's the thing we turn to almost immediately. And that's not the only way to solve things. In fact, it usually turns out not to be a solution at all. I guess then the last thing would be also along those lines. I'm a Christian, so my understanding ultimately about some of these things ultimately comes from the Bible, but I am really fearful about what religion does, what organized religion does, especially organized religion that is associated with a book of some kind. So this would be Islam, Judaism, Christianity, where there's a key book that people then go to and they say, oh, but it says this, and so everybody ought to do this. I think it's okay for a person. A person has to understand, if they are a faith of the book, they have to understand what it says, but they better not impose that understanding on somebody else, because somebody else understands it differently. And so many of the evils in our world today are because religious people who, because of the way they read the Bible, thinks everybody should act that way. And I think that's really, it's leading to tragic consequences. So don't trust prevailing culture. Think things through for yourself. I mean, don't ever feel like you have the right to impose your beliefs on anybody else. And I'm guilty of that sometimes, but I know that it's wrong, and I don't do it intentionally. I do it kind of reflexively sometimes.
Learn everything you can about everything you can. It's an amazing world out there, and enjoy it. Enjoy it. We spend too much time worrying about homework and jobs, education and money. You know, we need to enjoy this life. We were meant to enjoy it. You know, and it's a fascinating place to live.